Hello, Home Slices. It's Kiara with Home Slice Adulting coming to you with a new review on an old show. I started a new series, a new series situation where I am reviewing old shows through a 2021 lens. It's probably not going to be a fair review, but whatever. Last time I reviewed season 1 of Murder, She Wrote. Again, I was looking for shows, and Peacock is the newest streaming service, or one of the newer streaming services. So, while I was tired of looking through Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime, I was like, well, Peacock is new. Maybe they have some new stuff on there. And turns out they have some old stuff on there too, including Murder, She Wrote. So I reviewed the first season of Murder, She Wrote. If you're interested in that, check it out on my channel. If I remember, I'm going to put a link down to that video in the description below. But here we go. Right now I'm about to review season 2 of Murder, She Wrote. And again, we are with Angela Lansbury, who is the actress playing Jessica Fletcher, or JB Fletcher, as her nom de plume goes. I hadn't noticed in the first episode, but she absolutely goes by JB Fletcher in her books, which of course we know is interesting because a lot of times women had to change their names to more male. Look at the dog. Okay. All right now. Stop, Bo, stop. Stop nudging me. Sorry, y'all, my dog is being pushy. It's too late. It's too, no. It's too late. Look, you're trying to kiss up. Stop trying to kiss up. But anyways, so I hadn't really, there he is, okay. So I hadn't really noticed, but there were a lot of female authors who had to change their names to either these ambiguous type of abbreviations, or when you think about J.K. Rowling, or there are women who went by completely male-sounding names in order to make sure their stuff was published. So that was something I didn't really pick up on in the first season, but of course I picked up on it in the second season. So Jessica Fletcher is back, or JB Fletcher is back, and once again she is solving murders everywhere she goes. And yeah, this is season 2, and one of my critiques for season 1 was that one of my critiques for season 1 is that there were almost no women who died, who were murdered. And they must have heard me, retroactively in 1986 when season 2 came out, or was it 1985, one of those. And they basically killed women almost every episode. So they really tried to balance out the scales this time. Episode 1, woman dead, like multiple women died in the first episode. So when you think about the pilot season of a show, people try to stay safe, right? They try to stay in this safe arena so that they are able to be brought back for another show, particularly in 1985, where any level of like risque, any amount of risque behavior that is too much can get the show canceled. So I guess they were like, well, we can't have women dying in the first season, but now that we're renewed for a second season, we're gonna kill all the women, so again, I don't mind. I feel like if we're gonna be equal, like, let's be equal. Men and women be getting murdered all the time, so let's portray that, and let's not act like it doesn't happen. So there are a bunch of dead ladies in season 2, so they're evening out the score on that one. Y'all, there's a very horrible chase scene in the first episode of the second season, and it is so funny. The suspect is running from this kind of private investigator kind of situation, and they're on a dock, and the guy runs and jumps into the water and doesn't even bother to swim away. And it's like, why even create a chase scene if you're not gonna let him like, it just didn't make sense. Okay, but maybe I'll try to show a clip of it. Maybe I won't, whatever. But anyways, so one other thing that I didn't realize, as Angela Lansbury was talking, and there was an episode where she was singing and where she played a character who basically was her cousin, but also looked like her. I don't know what it is about TV shows where main characters on the show always have some type of doppelganger. It's usually somebody that's related to them. Sometimes they're not related, but the only difference about them is usually like something like their hair color or their eye color or something like that. And it's like, everybody don't have to have a doppelganger or a cousin that looks exactly like them. But there was an episode where Angela Lansbury or Jessica Fletcher had a cousin who looked just like her with a different hair color, and she was singing. And when she was singing, I was like, Angela Lansbury did the voice of Beauty and the Beast. And also, Angela Lansbury is still alive. She's like 95. So shouts out to her. She's been out here doing her thing for years, okay? And come to find out, when Murder, She Wrote started, she was 60 years old. So even though I think the show is still very vanilla in season 2, and I think that they still have not depicted her as having romantic desires, and that they really have not depicted any vices or any negative qualities about the Jessica Fletcher character. I do think that it's great that there is this older woman who's out here doing her thing. So in some ways it's like, okay, now this lady cannot be perfect. The most annoying thing about her is that she gets on the cops' nerves, always up in police business. That's the most annoying that she gets, really. So I'm still waiting for them to really flesh out who she is as this like not perfect individual. So that still hasn't happened. So that's still annoying to me. Also, I want to say that there was more representation in season 2, if I remember correctly. A black female doctor dies in an episode. It was a prison episode. About Angela doing like a workshop in a women's prison, and they get put on shutdown because a black female doctor dies. There were other black characters. Again, not a lot of representation for the Latino community. No representation from the LGBTQ community. I don't recall anyone from like the Asian or Pacific Islander communities. Like, I mean, again, this is me in 2021, you know, reviewing a show that came out in the mid 80s. So what can I expect? Anyway, there are also a lot of recurring themes. And one of them is that Cabot Cove, the town where Angela Lansbury lives, or where Jessica Fletcher lives, it's a small, you know, fisherman town. It has a lot of charm. And over again, that charm is being threatened by developers who want to come in and build condos, or who want to turn it into a tourist attraction, whether it's developers or whether it's like there was a writer who was supposed to be writing like an article about Cabot Cove being the next big Airbnb town. I don't know. But there's like this threat of the town becoming a tourist attraction that comes up over and over again in the show. And I don't know how to feel about that. I mean, I know that people in small towns want to keep that small town charm, and that having a place to be a tourist attraction might be annoying. And like having large high-rise condos will block the view of the water and that type of stuff. But it's just like, okay, this is something I can't identify with. That was a concern I couldn't identify with, really. Also, I feel like Jessica Fletcher's humility kind of annoyed me at times, because she's out here solving murder cases, like murder after murder. She was even accused of murder maybe a couple times because she keeps finding bodies and whatnot. Again, it's so unrealistic that everywhere this woman goes, somebody that she knows is getting murdered, or somebody who is in any proximity to her is being accused of murder. Like this, it's too on the nose. I mean, it's like they can't be more creative in how these murders come about, you know? But anyways, she has this humility. Like right now, season 2 had 22 episodes. Season 1 had 23 episodes. So she has solved about 50 murders, because there are some episodes that have multiple murder victims. So she solved like 50 murders, and she's still like, oh no, you know, I'm just little old me and I'm not gonna get in your way. I don't plan on sticking my nose in this investigation. And it's like, no, of course you go stick your nose in this investigation. You're Jessica freaking Fletcher, and you can't resist. And sometimes you should lean into that and say, I'm pretty good. But again, she can't come across as arrogant, because that would go against her perfect image as the nice old lady who's out here solving crimes and whatnot. So another thing that came up, they talked about televangelists, which is really interesting, and about how televangelists take money from their parishioners and things along those lines. So I thought that was interesting. It was a topic that they covered. They also covered there was an episode where she was in Alabama. Can't remember what she was doing there. She was in town with a friend, and she was on her way somewhere to a conference or something. I don't know, but she stopped over in Alabama. Of course, a murder happened and she got stuck there. And in Alabama, they had a black sheriff, and they dealt a little bit with racism, which is an interesting topic for white media executives. So they dealt with people in this white town not liking that they had a black sheriff. So there were no N-words involved, of course, but, you know, they threw a few C-words around, colored. So, so they tackled racism a little bit. So that was interesting. Again, okay, so how many times are people going to get murdered by fireplace pokers? That's another thing that felt like it was recurring. Like, it was multiple times where people were attacked with fireplace pokers. And it's like what? Like, is it just because they're like handy weapons, or that they're heavy, or that they're cast iron, or whatever? Like, I don't get it. But that's another recurring thing. Also, one of the things that it kind of felt like in the first season was that things were a little disjointed. Like, every episode was basically its own thing. And unless they were characters from Cabot Cove, there were no real recurring characters or recurring themes. But in this season, we start to see a bigger connection between episodes and between characters, right? And so it turns out that one of the recurring characters actually turns out to be a murderer. So for me, that was like an elevation in like the plot twist, right? Like, we have built a rapport with this character. We know who he is. We know what he's known for. And then when he turns out to be a murderer, we're like, oh my gosh, a person that we actually know and who's like a known resident of this town, and who, you know, who we have some type of relationship with, is actually the murderer. And so I thought that was an elevation on the show as well. And finally, let's talk about some of the stars that are in the show. And I'm going to be real quick. We got Florida Evans was on an episode. We got Margaret Avery, also known as Shug Avery from The Color Purple. She was a prisoner in the women's prison episode. We had the mom from Even Stevens, who played a waitress in an episode about a diner. And then we have Walter White, who his real name is Bryan Cranston. He was in an episode, an episode about tennis. So those were just a few of the stars that I recognize. When I tell you Bryan Cranston, he was very young, not child young, but he was very young in that episode, to the point where I was like, nah, that's not him. But it turned out to be him. So that's one of the things I enjoy about the show, is figuring out, you know, where do I know this star from? That person looks familiar. So that was one of the things that I enjoyed. But overall, season 2, I think, was better than season 1. And hopefully they keep getting better as we go. And if I remember, we're going to do some reviews. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And if you're interested, you can check out Murder, She Wrote on the Peacock app. Peace out, home slices.